Greetings, friends. I have crafted a fresh, intriguing narrative for your enjoyment. Make yourself comfortable and let us dive in. She expressed that our marriage seemed draining, not glancing at me. My professional mentor insists I should concentrate on my career, she stated, moving towards her phone, seemingly already departing from the room. The words fell with precision and impact as if they had been rehearsed elsewhere. I remained silent, and she elaborated that personal connections were distractions at present, that emotional upkeep hindered progress, that top performers needed to conserve their resources. Then she stood up, gave me a friendly peck on the cheek as you would reassure a colleague, and headed for the shower. A short while later, she reiterated her stance more explicitly, as if explaining a new policy. The company advocated growth partnerships. Established figures guided emerging talent. This wasn't emotional, it was organizational. She was part of senior management, married, respected, and someone who helped maintain accountability for her objectives. Tuesdays and Thursdays in the evening, distinct limits, defined goals. She mentioned his name offhandedly as if it held no significance. I acknowledged, even agreeing it was logical. For months, she's been functioning like this. Early mornings, calendar appointments color-coded, protein drinks before sunrise, meetings on weekends. She discussed career advancement and visibility, asserting that many people faltered because they were swayed by comfort. When she expressed that intimacy was sapping her energy, she presented it as statistics, not rejection. Rest was a priority. Concentration was key. That night, she dozed off quickly, facing away from me with her phone charging on the nightstand, the screen flickering every now and then. I remained motionless, gazing at the ceiling, hearing the unanswered notifications accumulate. At that moment, I thought it was true. I believed this was about self-discipline, ambition, and a short-term compromise for a more substantial tomorrow. I hadn't realized that my accountability partner wasn't there to aid her in ascending. Rather, he was standing in as a replacement. Over the course of the following 6 months, our household transformed into operating according to her routine, not the clock. Her alarm blared at 5 each morning, precise and unyielding, and she was clothed before the second bus arrived. She relinquished coffee and embraced green powders she ordered in bulk. Her phone was seldom out of reach, used to monitor steps, sleep patterns, focus intervals. Upon waking, I'd typically find a brief note instead of a farewell. In the evenings, she'd return brimming with energy, speaking rapidly, employing words such as visibility, leverage, and next level. She paced while changing clothes, elucidating that many people remained average due to their fear of investing in themselves. She voiced this sentiment while tying her hair up, already half facing the door again. When I attempted to draw her near, she'd retreat and remind me of her need for high-quality sleep for optimal performance. She spoke casually, much like arranging a meeting. Tuesdays and Thursdays emerged as unwavering milestones. These were accountability sessions, adhering rigidly to the same schedule and script. She'd depart earlier than normal, impeccably dressed, and return later with an altered demeanor, sharp, concentrated, almost radiant. The car ride home was filled with strategic discussions about how her partner probed her thoughts effectively and stimulated new ideas. She mentioned he perceived potential that others overlooked. I expressed my pride in her accomplishments. It held sincerity. When I inquired about the duration of this phase, she asserted that growth wasn't temporary, it was a lifestyle. She kissed my cheek, scanning her calendar, and declared this interim discomfort a prerequisite for long-term rewards. Afterwards, she set her alarm, turned away, and inserted earplugs to shield her sleep rhythm. As usual that night, there was no room left for us. Only routines, only progress, only the structure of what she's constructing without me. The accountability meetings adopted an unwavering cadence, making it feasible to regulate my watch. Every Thursday and the subsequent Thursday, she exited our home at the same minute, her coat held loosely in one arm while her phone was prepped for use. She never disclosed their meeting location, merely explaining that it was tranquil enough for contemplation. Upon return, she presented herself with radiant eyes and an upright posture, seemingly having emerged from another dimension within our apartment. She conversed during the drive home, not directly to me, but through me. Newly coined expressions poured out, polished and incisive. She spoke of her partner, urging her to aim higher, to resist reducing her aspirations to fit others' comfort. She mentioned him, dispelling her excuses. She asserted that genuine growth was uncomfortable, and the unease it brought confirmed its effectiveness. A month into this ritual, her corporation organized a downtown mixer where I accompanied her. It was during this event that I encountered him. Firm handshake, effortless grin, and a wedding ring on display. He conversed with an air of familiarity to being heard, his voice even measured. He complimented your spouse on her progression, labeling it the point where top performers make their breakthrough. Her laughter at his jokes came slightly earlier than everyone else's. Upon his speaking, she subtly oriented her body towards him without awareness. Topics ranged from his children, commuting, and senior management position. All details matched up: responsible, fitting, secure. When he departed, she declared it advantageous for me to have met him. She emphasized transparency as crucial in such partnerships. She gripped my hand and mentioned I should be grateful she had someone vested in her prosperity. I told her he appeared impressive. She smiled contentedly and returned to scanning her messages prior to our reaching the vehicle. That evening, her phone vibrated before she dozed off. She smiled at the screen, then averted her gaze from me and closed her eyes. The first fissure emerged during a family gathering, slipping out of her mouth effortlessly. While dishes were being cleaned, my sibling played a movie I knew my companion wouldn't join me in watching. Midway through, she chuckled and critiqued the last act as sloppy, arguing the director overly depended on nostalgia rather than structure. Her criticism, unfamiliar to me, seemed precise and practiced, reminiscent of a well-rehearsed phrase. I inquired about when she had seen it. She hesitated briefly, just enough for me to detect her deception. Then she revealed they had discussed it during therapy. She mentioned that her accountability partner often utilized movies as allegories for business strategy, believing storytelling exposed how people made decisions under stress. She presented it as self-evident, implying it clarified everything. No one responded. The discussion shifted. She returned to smiling, to nodding at comments she had heard elsewhere. After that incident, I began noticing phrases, jokes, and views inconsistent with our shared experiences. She referenced unread articles at home and unheard podcasts around me. Once she corrected my statement mid-sentence using someone else's exact phrase from a social event and dismissed it as mere coincidence. Tuesday evenings extended. Thursday nights dragged past midnight. Upon her arrival, she maintained the same intense energy displayed at work, phone still unlocked and messages still open. She conversed while changing, walking restlessly, explaining that alignment was more important than comfort. I ceased asking questions. Instead, I observed patterns, and these patterns no longer appeared professional. They seemed rehearsed. By chance, I discovered her calendar, an occurrence that happens only once. Her laptop lay open on the couch, its screen improperly angled, still active. She was in the bedroom preparing for a Thursday meeting, moving swiftly and already running late. I did not intentionally take my seat nor touch the keyboard. I waited for the sync alert to appear at the screen corner. His schedule filled the entire week, not just Tuesday and Thursday nights or lunchtime slots, which were labeled alignment. Coffee breaks were designated as check-ins, while early morning walks and weekend entries read strategy session, all held off-site. I scrolled through without clicking, my fingers leaving the trackpad untouched as the month unfolded before me. 12 to 15 meetings every month, a recurring pattern, consistent proximity. She walked by, grabbed her bag, and said she'd return late, oblivious to the screen behind her. When she left, the laptop turned off automatically. That night, I didn't inquire about the session's outcome, nor did I remark on her energy or mood. Instead, I observed as she talked while changing, repeating the same phrases, the same rhythm, as if rehearsed from a prior presentation. She set her alarm, plugged in her phone, and turned away. For the upcoming weeks, I remained silent. I monitored her comings and goings, noticed how she would soften at messages before responding, stopped hearing my name in her narratives of the day. I learned which nights she extended her stay beyond schedule and which mornings she left earlier than expected. She believed I was still oblivious. However, I wasn't. I was merely biding my time to observe how far this went. The next corporate gathering wasn't noisy. It didn't need to be. It was one of those midweek receptions where everyone feigned relaxation while covertly assessing status and rank. I arrived with her, maintaining a step back, observing the room awaken around familiar patterns. She never sought me once inside. She didn't have to. Her accountability partner was already present. They didn't approach each other. They didn't exchange greetings. They aligned, matching timing, pauses, and sharing a half-smile when someone else spoke too long. As he leaned in to speak, she chuckled mid-sentence. When she talked, he noddingly affirmed, as if anticipating the direction of her thoughts. They stood close yet uncrossed, a distance that seemed deliberate. At one instance, she started a phrase but paused. He filled in the gap for her, not boisterously, not jokingly, more like a continuation. No one responded, no one seemed to notice. I did. Then I began to spot it elsewhere in the room. Another woman from her department leaned toward a man I recognized as leadership. The same stance, the same synchronous cadence. A third pair near the bar, their heads tilted similarly, engaging in conversations broken into fragments that only made sense to each other. It wasn't flirting. It was an alignment, the kind that subtly displaces everything else. When my wife eventually sought me out, it was to confirm if I was still present. She met my eyes across the room for a brief moment, nodded once, then returned her focus to him without interrupting her conversation. I departed early. That evening she messaged stating the gathering was fruitful and that she was pleasantly tired. She didn't inquire about my whereabouts. She was already aware. After that night, it became apparent to me that this wasn't solely work-related. It was a structure, and I no longer fit within it. Following this realization, I subtly altered my actions without making an announcement. I ceased inquiring about her appointments, stopped scrutinizing the clock when she wasn't present, and avoided commenting on her attire, emotions, progress. When she discussed work, I would listen politely but remain non-responsive. No probing questions, no encouragement, no worry. Merely acknowledgement, similar to what she now offered me. She remained oblivious. Tuesday and Thursday continued as before. She departed and returned. I no longer waited up. If she arrived late, the lights were out. If she left early, I didn't stir. The gap between our routines expanded smoothly. I began filling my own appointments instead. I contacted old friends once thought to be mere diversions, resumed projects previously abandoned due to misaligned schedules. I found myself lingering later on weekends, neither energized nor drained, but neutral. At home, we navigated around each other like colleagues working different shifts. She chatted on the phone as she dressed. I answered emails at the table no longer in use. Our dialogues dwindled, reduced to logistical matters, rent, groceries, schedules. She ceased all physical intimacy, and I made no attempts to fill the void. As weeks went by, her promotion discussions grew louder and her name began appearing in internal communications. She printed drafts of speeches and left them on the desk. She practiced smiling in front of mirrors before events. I attended fewer of these occasions. When asked about my absence by her family, she responded that I was engrossed in my own pursuits. She spoke these words without looking at me. Her preoccupation with growth had blinded her to the emptiness around her, but that was intentional. Emptiness was the objective. The annual gala, more boisterous than other events, was designed to appear significant. With its large space, stage lights, and branded backdrops, it exuded importance. Guests dressed as if rehearsing future speeches. I remained seated at our table while she moved through the crowd without me, pausing frequently to shake hands, smile, and lean in close enough to be heard above the music. When the award commenced, she didn't appear anxious. She sat upright, hands folded, already poised. When her name was announced for exceptional performance, the room applauded synchronously. She rose, adjusted her jacket, and walked toward the stage without verifying if I was looking. With conviction, she expressed gratitude to leadership and her team. Then, she paused, smiled more broadly, and looked directly at him in the audience. She referred to him as her accountability partner. She acknowledged him as the one who believed in her when no one else did. His advice transformed everything. She acknowledged him humbly, modestly. The audience applauded louder than previously. I remained seated. Those around me clapped, turned, smiled as if experiencing a joint event. I didn't stir. I observed her on stage as she concluded, waved, and departed. She didn't search for me afterwards. Instead, she went directly to him. They conversed near each other, heads inclined together, immersed in their own bubble while others awaited their turn. I left before dessert. That evening she texted, asking where I had gone and expressing regret that I hadn't stayed longer. I didn't respond. I prepared a small bag, positioned it by the door, and arranged an early alarm. She slept through it. The decision had already been made. She merely verbalized it then. 3 days later, standing in her office building lobby, waiting for an elevator I hadn't intended to board, I dropped off a forgotten document at her request, required for a client review. She hadn't picked up her phone call. I informed the reception of her name. They phoned upstairs to reach her. As I waited, a man from her floor emerged from the security gate, recognizing me from our brief encounter at a Christmas party. We had exchanged trivial conversations, nothing noteworthy. He inquired about her well-being following the investigation. I questioned what investigation he was referring to. He seemed hesitant, looking towards the elevators, and finally mentioned that the Accountability Partnership program had been terminated several months prior, quietly without any official announcement. Human Resources had discontinued all partnerships due to concerns about boundaries and influence. The man stated this happened approximately 4 months ago. He claimed leadership wanted it kept secret with no trace or paper trail. The elevator bell rang. No one moved. He added that anyone still associating under that name was doing so independently, off the record, without any protection or policy. He said most individuals distanced themselves quickly once the program ceased to exist. I thanked him and stepped back outside, leaving the document undelivered. That evening she arrived home late, full of excitement, discussing future plans and progress. She briefly mentioned her partner, as was customary. I opted not to interrupt or inquire. Instead, I allowed her to continue talking until she ran out of steam. It remained unclear whether she was aware the program had ended or if she chose to continue regardless. Regardless, their relationship no longer held any official, organized, or secure status. It was a decision made secretly, upheld publicly at my expense. She retired for the night first. I stayed awake long enough to close several accounts, then schedule a meeting with the leasing office for the following day. I didn't require evidence. Timing sufficed. I chose not to confront her or demand clarification. Instead, I acted stealthily. Over the subsequent week, I untangled every connection that bound us together. I closed our joint accounts sequentially. During a lunch break, I withdrew my name from the lease. I redirected my mail. I ceased attending family dinners with her side and texted brief messages citing work schedule alterations. No elaboration, no theatrics. She detected my absences before the paperwork came to light. One night, she stood in the doorway as I was packing up my belongings. She inquired about the situation, her voice calm yet puzzled, as if unexpectedly called to a meeting without preparation. I continued folding, avoiding eye contact. I informed her that she had already selected her accountability partner and that I was honoring her choice. She made no counterargument, no apology. She simply stood there, silent, like someone waiting for an unwritten script to unfold. 3 months later, her LinkedIn profile appeared on my feed. She had left the company without comment, only seeking new ventures. Out of reflex, I clicked through. Her accountability partner was still there with the same title and trajectory, still married. Still in view. I spotted her once after that from afar across the street. She was preoccupied with her phone, moving restlessly, scrutinizing the screen at each stride. Her gaze never deviated upwards. I continued walking. No feelings of triumph or fulfillment filled the air, only a void where stress had once resided. She constructed an illusory world centered on professional achievements and conformity, adopting external terminology. When this facade crumbled, it claimed her job, marriage, and the man who never intended to abandon his life for hers. I chose not to linger and witness its demise. I'd already distanced myself from the system, and that was sufficient. As you've read until the conclusion, what are your thoughts on this narrative? Share them in the comments. Keep following for more authentic and concealed stories approaching soon.